you are an animator and you work with Antje Hein. And Antje Hein is our festival absolute record holder because 5 of her films were here at our festival, and she won 3 awards at this festival. And you work with her on all of these films, if I'm right?
Yes.
As an animator. And what was your collaboration like with Antje?
Antje and myself, we met 10 years ago when she was on the lookout for an animator for Pavo. Yeah. Pavo was the second film which she did with fundings. So she had won an award at the Dresden Film Festival, which is prestigious in Germany, and she had some money and wanted to realize the second film. And that became Pavo. And so she looked out for some people and I applied. I was on the lookout myself. And actually, she wanted to start with Trial and Error with a film which came after, but Pavo still wasn't finished. So thus it came that I stayed with her for the next project, and then she asked me if we should do kind of a company together, if you want to call it that, or just maintain the collaboration as a creative duo, or at the time a trio, in fact, because we were 3, like Johanna Hochholzer was also part of our team. She designed almost all of our films. And so until this February, we were a team of 3, a core team of 3. And with me mainly being responsible for animation and compositing and rendering, so like animation things, technical things. And with Forever 7, that changed, kind of. This was, or is, the first film which we did after third-party content, because all other films are original content created by ourselves, and Forever 7 is based on a book by a very well-known German children's book author and illustrator, whom I happen to be a fellow student of. So we studied together, Sabine Büchner and me. And so in that case, my responsibility grew. Like, I had to supervise several animators, and thus it came that in the end we said, okay, we share direction on this film for the first time.
That was my next question. What
talk so much.
What happens, because this is the first time you are also director.
Yes.
And how do you feel with this role?
Well, it's not the first time that I've directed animations. I did some before, not many, but I did. And then for like many years, I focused mainly on doing the craft, on animating, which was fine by me. And I think when you know what you do and when you know how to animate, you also are able to tell other people better what they have to do. And so that kind of came naturally back to me, so to speak. And I felt good with it. Also working with some really talented young animators. Some of them were interns of ours. And and like shifting my focus a little bit away from what I do to what others can achieve, and leading them and telling them about acting. I like that.
I have maybe more general question about your films, because I saw today almost all of them, those submitted to our festival. I remember them, of course, from programs, because they are very, very special. They are recognizable on the first look. Because of the design, I think, design of characters. So this is first question: whose decisions? How will the characters and drawing look like? And the second, your films are very philosophical, but at the same time very accessible. They are created for children, but adults will also find a message for themselves in them. It seems to me that is quite a difficult task. Why did you choose this way of telling a story?
These are good questions and a little hard questions. Maybe they chose us, so it was the other way around. As said, like we had one person, Johanna Hochholzer, who was completely responsible for design things for 10 years. So all films up to Forever 7 pretty much bear her signature, so to speak. That's the way she designs characters. But of course, we as a team have a common understanding of animation, and especially of 2D animation, because we are graphical people, we are 2D people, and we don't have anything to do with 3D. So for that matter, we like watching drawn animation, and we also like it being rather, how can I say, reduced. I don't say simple, but reduced, a minimalist graphical style. I think that it was very much about, from the beginning, also where Antje came from. She's a big fan of pictoplasma, if that says anything. And so that is her background. My personal background is pretty much a classical background in classical animation. So I've learned that at the Potsdam Film University. And so we met at those two ends, and we felt that this combines quite well. And I also say that I think if you do minimalist stuff, it connects very well with people. Yeah, maybe better than if it's more complicated and more naturalistic and stuff like that. And we always strove for that. We try to keep that in the films. And it's also, of course, simpler to achieve, easier to achieve when you do it. I mean, of course, you always put a lot of acting and also thought in it. Yeah, but it's not so much about building characters which are highly complex or something. Yeah. In case of Pavo, for instance, but also in case of Meta, there is a lot of improvisation involved, like trying things out, just animating and maybe throwing it away afterwards. We had that quite a bit on both films. So, and like making decisions out of your guts, yeah. And not necessarily having a finished and polished storyboard on those films. Like maybe in parts, maybe for sections, but not for the structure as a whole. So, and I think Pavo, the very first one, was the hardest, because Antje, she kind of knew by her feelings what she wanted to have, but she wasn't always able to tell it in the moment. Should we do this scene, or should we do that scene, or should we keep that character in, or throw another character out? So, and thus this improvisation happened, which I was talking about.
This is surprising for me.
And yeah, I mean, for animation, it's you could call it completely uneconomical in a way. Yes, and
especially for animation.
Especially for animation, but it also makes it interesting, because Pavo is I think it's still our most successful film which we did. So I think it has been recognized by a lot of festivals and institutions, and it came to my knowledge that some people even call it a classic of children's short films in the meantime, which is an honor, of course. It's based off a lot of trial and error, actually, yeah, on a lot of trial and error. When you have this trial and error moment in animation, something else comes in. Because in animation, as far as I'm concerned, we are very much used to structure, to planning, to pre-planning, everything right to the highest extent. Yeah, so that everything is fixed, and in the end, you just go along the storyboard, and it's like a blueprint, and maybe there are not so much surprises left. But on Pavo or on Meta, there were always surprises left, and this brings life into it. I mean, and this is, I find such a difference, for instance, to documentaries, because in documentaries, films are created like out of dozens of hours of material, and the result can be like this, or it can be like that. Yeah. And I find this so interesting, and I would be super grateful if animation could take something from that Yeah, to not look as master planned as it is so often. But that's me. That's my personal opinion, and of course, Forever 7 is quite the contrary, because that has been planned really thoroughly, and of course, we also had to respect the book.
But you had the book and the story already written.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That was another way of creating.
That was a completely different way of creating, absolutely, and also take designs which are not our own designs, but another person's designs. So this is sensitive stuff. It's also a debut book. It was the first book Sabine Büchner did, and she talked to us. It would be a dream of her if her first book could be made into a film. And we both talked as fellow students. And we are also friends, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. You don't want to mess this up, really. And
I guess she's satisfied with this animation.
She is satisfied. She was completely happy, and actually we have another film in planning after a book of hers. Okay,
that was supposed to be my last question. What are your plans, and in which roles now? Will you be also director now? What are you working on? And if we could watch it in our next selection for the next festival, or not so fast?
There will be a new film out next year, and I hope you will get it. Because for this time, for the very first time, we had the film submissions done by AG Animationsfilm, by a different entity, not by ourselves, because up to that point we did all submissions ourselves. Yeah. So the next film which we are going to put out is also after a children's book by another German children's book illustrator who is also rather well known, kind of famous person, with a completely different graphical style and a completely different humor as well. A little bit more edgy, a little bit more adult. So I think what we want to do is to try to come a little bit out of our comfort zone eventually. And after that, hopefully, if we get the funding, a next film after a book of Sabine Büchner again. And maybe to round it up, that because you asked, is it difficult to create films like we did? And story development, content development was difficult, as you can imagine, with that improvisation going on. And we always faced, like when we as animators or drawing persons started to make story decisions. Well, we did it, but it doesn't go well together always, I say. So, and from that end came a thought of Antje, who said, why not make books existing things into films? So, and that's basically the reason why we now do several films after books in a row. But I hope and I very much want us to return to content creation of our own.
Okay, so we are waiting for the results.
Yeah, and we will be happy to send them here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.